December is notoriously the most expensive and hectic month for travel, but with a bit of strategy, you can avoid both the holiday tax and the airport meltdown. Executive Manager at Harvey World Travel Southern Africa, Kele Lekalake, is here to help us guide you on how to save money and stay sane this festive season. Kele, good to speak to you. Merry Christmas. What are the top 3 moves that save real money in December, even if you're booking late?
Good afternoon, Hugo, and thank you for having us. And Merry Christmas to you too. I think it's important to just note that you have to be flexible. You have to really be flexible on your travel times, your travel dates, especially if you're then booking at the very last minute, because it is quite an expensive period to travel because of the demand. But of course, if you are being a bit more flexible in the times and the days, you are able to get a better price. I mean, that's definitely not the cheapest, but a better price from your affordability perspective. Yeah. So I think it's definitely to do that, to be flexible, to keep on checking, and to at least have that in mind, that if you're not flexible, you're not going to get the best price. Yeah.
Now, you talk about you have to keep checking, and one of the issues is, where do you check? Are there sites, are there apps that you can use that sort of monitor the best prices and best days to travel?
I would say for domestic travel, I mean, you would be checking on a website. I mean, within our network, you can check with our agents as well. Preferably work with one of our travel agents, and obviously from a reliability perspective, they can obviously guide you. Even from the time that you're searching, they're able to tell you, engage you to say, look, if you travel 2 days later than the date that you're looking for, you'll get this at maybe at 15% cheaper fare or 20% cheaper fare. So working with our travel agents or a reputable travel agents gives you that guidance. So it's important to do that. But for me to say at the time, because what happens is, even if you keep checking, prices will fluctuate based on also the return rate of exchange and fuel pricing, all of that. But more importantly, at the time when you're asking your travel agent, they're able to give you a guide to say, in the next week on this particular day, to fly out and to come back would be your best option.
Kele, I was eavesdropping a couple of my colleagues a few days ago who were talking about travel, and one of them said that she'd booked a ticket to travel, I think, to Cape Town on Christmas Day, and exclaimed at how much cheaper it was to travel on Christmas Day and potentially on New Year's. Is this part of the trick?
Yes, I can tell you now, if you have to check, you'll find that you're getting a 20% cheaper, 20 to 30% cheaper than what the normal fare would be, because people have already traveled. People have already arrived at the destination to be with loved ones or to celebrate Christmas. So particularly people don't always travel on Christmas Day. So the demand is a bit lower, making the price a bit cheaper.
So let's talk about individuals that are a little bit more organized than the rest of us, who plan months in advance, right? So if I'm thinking about traveling for Christmas 2026, how much in advance should I plan? I mean, should I be booking or buying my tickets in June? Do I wait till August? What sort of time frame should I be looking at?
I would say a gap of three months, domestic, about 3 months gap prior to a travel date is still quite a reasonable time to travel. I would definitely say internationally, maybe about 3 to 6 months, especially if you're going to be requiring visas and all of that. Accommodation, I would say as soon as you also know, because I think with flights, it becomes a supply and a demand, right? The same with hotels, but I think you have a lot more flexibility in that respect. With hotels, people have favorite spots, favorite resorts, favorite location. So if you want to get that location, the sooner you book it early in the year, the better. I mean, you've got people that come back from holiday in January, they're already booking and securing their next 7 day at a certain destination, at a certain resort. Because once it's fully booked, it's fully booked. With flights, you may have the flexibility to change your date and stuff like that. So I think as soon as you've made a decision that this is the period that you want to travel, and this is the resort you want to be at, speak to your travel agent, make sure that you book it, and your flights, you definitely can book way in advance. advance, Hugo. I mean, that's not impossible. You know, you can book up to a year, in fact. But what tends to happen is that if the demand is not yet, you know, I mean, it depends on the airline and how if they want to run a special. Sometimes you find in the middle of the year they push a promotion for certain routes at a much cheaper price. So you do have that at least room to still look at your best pricing. But again, always speak to your travel agents. They have the best advice in that respect, for sure.
Kele, let's talk about how travellers can avoid false cheap tickets. You know, and sometimes it includes baggage or seat selection, and then, you know, it turns the fare into a premium price. And I'll give an example, right? A few months ago, I was travelling regionally. I found a ticket on a platform going for 1,800 Rand, I recall, and which was about half the normal fare. And I said to myself, okay, I'm going to purchase this ticket. If it isn't legit, so be it. But, you know, I was lucky and I did get a massive discount. But it's not every site, is it, that is selling legitimate pricing or legitimate tickets?
And agreeably so, Hugo. And I think more importantly, if you are online and you see a cheaper ticket, by the time you actually pay for the ticket, you'll realize that there's a lot of cross-sell, upsell that you have to do to get to a point where you've got the best pricing of the day. So what we tend to always advise our customers to say, yes, at a search, it may look like it's quite cheap, but once you get to the point where you now pay for the ticket, that 1.8 could actually be 2.5, you know, so that's the one part. And again, especially like you said, if you're traveling cross-border, one of the most important things is you can't be going abroad necessarily without luggage, right? So some of these tickets don't actually offer luggage, and that's something that has been new with the airlines in the last couple of years, where some of the cheap tickets don't include a bag. Now you arrive at the airport, bag is not included. The minute you add that bag, it makes the tickets very expensive all of a sudden. So it's important that before, and to your point, before you decide to buy a ticket, consult with an expert. Actually buy with from an expert, because they can immediately tell you that this ticket is cheaper, but it doesn't have a bag, or it doesn't have access to a lounge. And if those are the things that are important to you as a traveler, you want to be aware of them prior to you feeling like already you're starting your trip on a very sour note, you know.
Yeah, I was at the airport yesterday, and there were hundreds of thousands of people at the airport. Now, you must have a checklist for reducing airport stress, you know, online check-in, arrival times, documents, and carry-on strategy, right? Because you get there and hundreds of thousands of people. Sometimes you've got to spend hours and hours at the airport. How do you navigate that?
Definitely, you need to have a checkbook, especially if you're traveling with children, Hugo. You know, you need to make space and time for that queues at the airport. You need to make sure that you've got all your documentation. You need to make sure that in your carry-on luggage, you've got the necessary items. For example, make sure you don't have sharp objects in your bags. Those have to be checked in. Make sure that your power bank is with you and it's not checked in. You know, stuff like that. I mean, for example, there are airlines flying transatlantic, for example, to the US that will tell you the size of the battery of the power bank. You know, make sure that it's the right size. So those are the things that you have to have. I mean, your trusted travel agent can give you a checklist and take you through. Some of the airlines, of course, have their frequently asked questions on their website as well, so you can check particularly on the airline that you're traveling with. It's always important as well for travelers to be well informed themselves. You know, go through the frequently asked questions so that you're well informed. But I would agree, make sure that you know you travel more comfortably. You know, don't have a belt, because you get there, then you have to take the belt off. Make sure that you've got comfortable. So make it easy for yourself to make the transition through security point much easier for yourself and for your travelers. I mean, with kids, make sure that you've got the stuff that you need. When you're traveling with babies, make sure you've got all the necessary necessities rather for your baby, for your flight, to make it even more comfortable for them. So speak to your agent, make sure you've got those in check, and make sure that, especially with liquids, it's under obviously the allowed sizes, because obviously they'll confiscate. I mean, there's nothing worse that you've just bought a nice perfume and now it's confiscated because it's not the right size. So I think it's important to understand those dynamics.
I think worse off that it goes straight into the bin. Let's
I know, right?
Yeah. Kele, let's talk about flight cancellation, right? And layover. So, or flight delay. So what are my entitlements as a traveller? if a flight is delayed, I mean, how much delay sees or allows or requires, if you will, an airline to compensate me or to put me up for the night? Are there maximum hours that an individual can lay over on the same flight before they get some form of compensation?
It depends from airline to airline, Hugo, but the important part is what we always say to the traveler. Remember, the airline still has an obligation to make sure that you arrive at your destination. So what travelers tend to do, they panic immediately. There's a cancellation. They panic. They want to immediately buy their own ticket out of pocket, buy a new ticket somewhere else with the hope, with the expectation that that other ticket would then be refunded by the airline. But the rules of the airline still prevails, and airline to airline differs. The most important part is immediately consult with the airline, understand what the delay is and what will happen next. And because obviously, if you are at the airport, let's say you're at the airport, immediately speak to the airline representative. But if you are at home and you get a notification that your flight has been cancelled, with your travel agent, obviously, if you booked with your travel agent, they would also get that notification. They can immediately say to you, look, these are the options that are available for you. Because if it's an international flight, it may be that that's the only flight that happens on the day. It means you have to look for a new flight. But of course, the airline has still got the obligation. That's important for travelers to understand, to take you from your origin to destination. That's what you paid for. And they will be obviously making plans, whether they have to book you overnight somewhere at a nearest hotel, especially if it's if you're at the airport, or they will say to you that you have been booked to an alternative airline. So it's important that you await those instructions, because just you booking a new ticket on your own because you need to get where you need to, which one can understand, you may actually run the risk that you're going to forfeit that ticket, because the airline would still be able to demonstrate that we have every intention of making sure that you arrive at your destination. Yeah.
Kele, final question before we let you go off and prepare for Christmas. Yes. Do you recommend insurance for domestic flights, and what must the policy be? What must the policy cover to be worth it?
I would definitely say yes. If you book your tickets with your card, there is an insurance that comes with that, but it's at a very minimum, Hugo. I would definitely say take travel insurance, especially if you're traveling within South Africa, you would have your normal medical aid in case you get injured or anything like that. But in the event of you losing your luggage, make sure that it covers, personal items, because those are the things that are most important and sentimental to all the travelers. So that's where your insurance will come in handy. Of course, if there's a cancellation or a delay and you end up forfeiting your entire trip, and obviously you spend months and maybe you've obviously paid a significant amount, insurance will help you to be compensated for that cost. Of course, you can still have the supplier sorting that out as well, but it's important to know that the insurance will come in handy in those instances.
Kele, appreciate your time for giving us all those hacks if you're planning on traveling. She's the Executive Manager at Harvey World Travel Southern Africa, Kele Lekalake.